In March 2026, a coordinated series of U.S. and Israeli airstrikes targeted Iranian military compounds. Within hours, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps retaliated by declaring the Strait of Hormuz completely closed to commercial shipping. This newspaper headline captures the immediate fallout. Global markets reacted instantly, driven by fears of skyrocketing crude oil prices and the severe inflation that naturally follows a massive energy shortage. Iran effectively weaponized geography. Through direct VHF radio broadcasts to vessels in the Gulf, they issued explicit instructions that passage was prohibited, threatening to target any commercial ship attempting to cross the waterway. An incredibly dense node of international commerce was severed almost instantly. The resources required to run modern economies are now physically trapped behind a military blockade. In this satellite view of the Strait of Hormuz, notice the severe geographical constraint. Designated shipping lanes are restricted to just 2 miles across, yet 21 million barrels of crude oil squeeze through here daily, roughly a fifth of global seaborne crude trade. This chart illustrates the severe limitation of alternative routes. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates have backup pipelines to bypass the strait, but their combined capacity is only 3.5 million barrels a day, leaving a daily deficit of over 17 million barrels. You cannot simply replace that volume of missing energy with alternative suppliers overnight. A massive fraction of the global energy supply is mathematically locked behind a 21-mile door. For commercial ships already loaded and out at sea, the closure creates an immediate logistical nightmare. With the Red Sea's Bab al-Mandeb Strait also facing threats from Houthi forces, the only viable detour for many vessels is to sail entirely around the continent of Africa. This map shows the physical reality of that detour. Bypassing the normal route means extending the journey by up to 14 extra days of continuous sailing. That delay carries severe financial penalties. On top of the extra time, maritime war risk insurance premiums, which usually sit at around 1 or 2% of a cargo's total value, can rapidly spike to 10% for any vessel operating near the conflict zone. When you combine 2 solid weeks of extra fuel burn, extended crew wages, and extreme insurance costs, the baseline expense to move a single shipping container skyrockets. Transporting raw materials and finished consumer goods across the ocean suddenly requires a massive premium, guaranteeing steep inflation across the entire global supply chain. Crude oil represents only a fraction of the trapped resources. A second heavily overlooked commodity sits inside the Gulf: liquefied natural gas, or LNG. LNG is natural gas that is supercooled down to a liquid state, so it can be efficiently shipped overseas. This is a satellite view of Qatar's Ras Laffan, the world's largest LNG export facility. Following a series of drone attacks, the facility halted production, instantly choking off roughly a fifth of the world's traded liquefied gas supply. A shortage of natural gas translates directly into a global agriculture crisis. Through a chemical procedure called the Haber-Bosch process, natural gas is used to mass-produce ammonia, and that ammonia is synthesized into urea. Urea is the most widely used nitrogen-based fertilizer in modern farming. Roughly a third of the global trade in these white pellets, urea fertilizer, has to pass through the Strait of Hormuz to reach global markets. Without that steady flow of synthetic nitrogen, farmers are forced to reduce application rates or alter their crop mixes. This creates a chemical bottleneck that directly threatens global harvests of wheat, corn, and rice. All of these macro geopolitical blockades ultimately converge on the shelves of your local grocery store. First, food manufacturers are hit with severely elevated utility bills. Running large-scale industrial bakeries or processing plants requires enormous amounts of electricity, which becomes much more expensive during a global natural gas shortage. Then comes the delivery phase. The logistics networks transporting those goods to regional distribution centers must absorb the massive spikes in fuel costs and maritime insurance we discussed earlier. Finally, looking all the way back to the start of the cycle, farmers are paying double for scarce fertilizer. The basic cost of growing the raw ingredients jumps months before the food even leaves the field. This flowchart illustrates what economists call a pass-through mechanism. When oil climbs toward $150 or $250 a barrel, every participant in the supply chain, from the tractor to the cargo ship to the supermarket fridge, is forced to pass those operating costs onto the consumer. The result is a prolonged period of stagflation. Stagflation is an economic condition where general financial growth slows down, unemployment rises, and the cost of basic survival simultaneously goes up. The Strait of Hormuz functions as the linchpin of global affordability. Its closure proves that modern civilization operates with incredibly thin margins, always remaining one 21-mile blockade away from a historic cost of living crisis.